Welcome to Confessions of a Terrible Leader, where real leaders share the raw truth about the lessons they learned the hard way so you don't have to. Join our host, Layci Nelson, founder of Transcend Leadership Collective and former terrible leader. On this podcast, we invite you to step into the confessional and get real with the messy stories and behind-the-scenes reality of leadership. Let's get to it. Hello, friends, and welcome back to Confessions of a Terrible Leader. I'm your friendly neighborhood podcast producer, Mary Scott, here today, once again, with founder and CEO of Transcend Leadership, Layci Nelson. Layci, welcome back.
It's so good to be here, Mary. Thank you.
I'm very glad to be here with you, and today we're returning to the original format of our Q&As, where Layci is truly in the hot seat.
I literally have no idea what she's going to ask me. None.
No, she has no idea whatsoever what I'm about to ask her. Although I did promise her it's not a deep dive. So anyway, without further ado.
No dark night of the soul required.
No,
on my
I promise you.
Okay,
no,
all right.
It's, no dark night of the soul required. Because there's a time for that. And there's a time where you're really tired of the dark night of the soul.
Yeah. Sometimes we do need to go to the far side of the moon on occasion, but
yeah, it's so true. So we spend, obviously, a lot of time talking about leadership and bad leaders and what it is to be a terrible leader and what it is to grow and become a leader worthy of being followed. But today we are going to talk about what if you as an employee, what are some things you can do? Everyone has a terrible boss at some point in their lives.
It's a rite of passage.
It is a rite of passage. Yeah, unfortunately, it really is. So, and this time of year, as we are recording this, it is April 17th, 2026, in the year of our Lord. And this time of year, as we get to the end of the school year, it always makes me think about young people going off into the world, into the workforce. And in June, we'll be replaying our Q&A for new graduates. But today, I kind of want to revisit. Going down memory lane is welcome and appropriate. But if you are someone who could be new to the big workforce, or let's say you are well into your career, perhaps you've been surprised where you had a beloved boss leave, and the person who comes and replaces them is like they're a terrible leader. What are some things you would offer as advice, encouragement, if you are an employee in that situation? And again, anecdotes are welcome. I have one I can share of my own, but I'm going to turn it over to you now, Layci. And just initially, what are some of your thoughts on that?
First, great topic, by the way. So this is fun. The first thing always I'm going to say is the only thing you can control is yourself. And so turning up your own self-awareness in that situation and trying to recognize and be able to articulate, what is it that I am finding so rough to be working with this person? And it's easy to just make a blanket statement of, oh my God, they're terrible, right? But really have the self-discipline to sit down and go, what are the things about the way this boss works that are difficult for me? Because you're not really going to be able to get to a place where you can ask for what you need if you can't articulate what you need. When I ask this question to people that feel like they're in this position, I'll hear back a lot of different answers. And sometimes it is, this boss is vindictive and mean and a bully. That's not most of the time. Thank goodness that is not the most common answer. What actually is, there's two most common answers when we really start to dig. And the first one is, I don't really know what my job is. I feel like the direction is unclear. I mean, I know what I got hired for, but the expectation in execution isn't lining up. Or maybe on the meta level, it's there, but like on the micro level, they're like, they change what I'm supposed to be doing day to day. I don't know what the most important thing is. I don't have really strong marching orders, so to speak, or I get so many things thrown at me all day long that I feel like I can't even get my main job done because I'm always putting out fires, and I just feel like I can't win because I am underwater or just barely treading water all the time. That's the first, most common frustration that we hear about.
Mhm.
The second is the absent boss.
Mhm.
It's the boss that is not available. Rarely they'll poke their head in, but they rarely are communicating with consistency. They're not throwing things at you all day long because they're just not around. And so you're not getting the feedback that you need. Maybe they're physically absent from the office. Maybe they're physically in the office, but their door's shut, they're checked out. It's very much like do not bother me vibes happening. And you are feeling the employees left feeling very much like they're they're supposed to just kind of figure it out, but they're floundering because they haven't been given clear authority as to what can they decide without getting permission from the leader. What is within their lane? What are their guardrails for decision making? And so things bottleneck and get stalled out. And it again results in that same sensation of like, oh my God, I can't keep my head above water, which is why we throw that the feeling is usually pretty similar. So
Mhm.
we throw the blanket statement of like, oh, this person's a terrible boss. I can't I can't keep my head above water, but it could be because they're a bully, because they're absent, or because they're not clear, and or a mix of the three. But then when you can really start to articulate and pinpoint is when you're going to then know, okay, if it is this, then I can approach it as with this conversation.
Mhm.
Because just a general, I'm not getting what I need from you. If you have a boss that's not skilled in those areas, they're going to need a lot more from you to be able to adjust the behavior so it meets you where you need to be met.
That makes sense. And I know that's feedback you received from
Yeah.
very real people in
Yes.
very real situations.
Yes.
And those are really difficult things because I think about, okay, story time. Story time. Here we go.
Yes. Tell your story.
Okay. So when I was 18 and I had just started college, I just started my undergrad. I was actually living at home and commuting to the university because it was just close enough to be able to do that, save a lot of money. And I had been teaching private piano lessons since I was at the tender age of 15. I had a wonderful piano teacher who didn't discourage me. She said that you'll learn a lot more from your students than you think, and it would be good for you. And she was absolutely right. So I
Yep.
loved teaching piano, and it was great.
Yep. It's the
But
highest
I
level of learning is to teach others. Go on.
absolutely, yes, yes, agreed. So, but being 18, I wanted to try something new. Of course. And I thought it would just be super fun. And a lot of people are going to laugh at this. And please do laugh because it's very laughable. I really wanted to work at a coffee shop. I just thought it would
Girl.
be, 18, so romanticizing the whole
Yes.
thing.
Yes.
And I just
Yeah, I have a similar story. Continue.
okay, ooh,
Continue.
goody. All right, goody.
Yes.
So I wanted so bad to work at a coffee shop. I just thought,
Mhm.
in my mind, this is
It's
going to
the
be
dream,
this
man.
is the dream.
Yeah.
So much fun. Drink all the special beverages during your shift. I mean, come on. So to my absolute delight, there was a new Starbucks being built in my general neighborhood. I grew up in the country, so whatever, everything's like a minimum 20-25 minute drive.
Yeah.
You get it.
Yeah.
I got hired, so I was a freshman. Okay, so keeping in mind, I'm a brand new college student and I have a brand new job working at a coffee shop, working at Starbucks specifically, a
Yeah.
Starbucks that was not exactly in a tucked away location. It was right
Busy.
off the interstate.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so you got a lot of people coming from Chicago, Milwaukee. We're kind of in
Yeah.
that corridor.
And Starbucks does not play with, like, their
Uh,
expectations and rules.
no, no,
Yeah.
no, they don't play. Absolutely not. So my immediate supervisor was a wonderful person and he taught me well and I enjoyed working with him. He was very patient and he was very humorous. So my kind of boss. But the boss, the manager, was a terrifying human being. There's no other way I can describe it. She was a terrifying human being. And everything started off okay. The store opened, things were going along, but people started quitting
Mhm.
quickly.
Mhm.
Young, inexperienced Mary, like, I didn't really realize, like, how diagnostic that was. I didn't
Right.
know. I had
Right.
worked on farms and taught piano lessons.
Right.
Those had been my jobs.
This was your
Like
first corporate introduction.
right,
Yes.
right. Even though I was just, a lowly little barista, this was my first corporate introduction, right.
Yeah.
So also working with animals was way better. I just wanted to say that. Anyway, things really just escalated. More and more people were quitting and the new hires were coming in while there were still fairly new hires. Like this all happened in a very short amount of time. I literally stayed there for 1 semester. That's it. That is a very
Mhm.
short amount of time
Yeah.
because eventually it got to the point where they messed up my schedule. I had a concert that day. I'm, piano major, music major,
Right.
and I let them know. And it was not a last minute thing. I let them know there's been a mistake. I'm not available on Saturday. And I've never been treated like this by a boss ever since then. And that's
Mm.
saying a lot
Yeah,
because
you've had a few jobs.
I've had a few
Yes.
jobs, and she just unleash a litany of screaming, curses,
The bully.
literally. Yes, yeah,
Yes.
like truly. And I certainly was not the only one that she treated
Right.
that way.
Clearly.
Clearly.
She couldn't keep anybody.
No,
Yeah.
she couldn't keep anyone. And it was so shocking. I had worked with farmers, rough around the edges, didn't have a problem
Uh-huh.
yelling at people, but not like that. Not
Right.
like that. And so in my young, very young self, I had never experienced this boss just absolutely cursing me out and everyone else too.
Mhm.
So it wasn't too long after that where I put in my 2-week notice. I
Mhm.
went back to teaching piano. Then that was what I did for like the next 25 years,
Yeah.
among other things.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that was a situation. So obviously, we're talking about what can you do with a bad boss? Well, sometimes the answer is you must leave.
Absolutely.
Sometimes that really truly is the answer. She
Yes.
was not a person who could be reasoned with. She was not a healthy person and she was not committed to any type of, growth or hearing people out or anything like
Yep.
that. And this we're
Yeah.
talking about just a coffee shop job.
Right.
This is
Right.
ridiculous. So that's my story of
Yes.
that. That's one
Well,
bad boss.
and sometimes I think, yes, if you can leave, get out, right? Like full on movie, get
Right.
out if
But
you
you
can.
sometimes you
But sometimes you
can't.
can't.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you have to be looking for the job while you keep the job you have, right? And other times in life, you just have to grit your teeth because you cannot right now afford the time and energy it's going to take to go land another job, work a job, go to school. And if you have kids, like a
Forget it.
mortgage, you throw in the complexities and it just gets harder and harder. So there are times you have to just protect yourself and do the best you can and get through. And I don't often recommend anyone armoring up. But in these instances, absolutely. Just take nothing personal. Don't give them anything personal. Do your job well, be a great coworker. But when it comes to that boss, do what you need to do to survive that situation until you can get out. Because if there is no commitment on their side to do anything different, it's not going to change. And that is when I would say go find somewhere else because no one deserves to sit in that. By the way, we don't just see that dynamic in barista entry level jobs. We see it all the way up the chain to
Mhm.
where and sometimes it can get really hard to leave if you're sitting in that position and your salary is, you're making $300,000 a year. You're like, where am I going to go
Oh,
to make
right.
$300,000 a year?
Yeah, exactly.
Like you have the golden handcuffs happening, right?
Mhm.
So then it's like, do I just wait this horrible boss out? If they're the owner of the company, well, good luck. So, anyways, all that to say, there's a lot there, a lot to unpack with making that choice. But please, please don't underestimate the long-term health consequences, physical, emotional, and mental of deciding that you're just stuck and you have no agency and there's nothing you can do to get out or do anything different. That's when we lose hope. And then that's when we just start really as humans start spiraling and does not end well typically for us in the mental, emotional, spiritual health, relational, home life. It impacts everything.
Everything.
So I would say, yeah, sometimes we are in those horrible boss positions. We just have this boss that has no desire to do anything differently, but don't lose your agency. Even if you're making $500,000 a year, do not and this is a real situation. I've had people making $500,000 a year
Gosh.
that are like, I hate my life. And they are just so trapped in these horrible situations.
Yeah.
And when they've decided that there's no possible way to do anything differently is when desperation sets in. And I would say don't give up on yourself and your creativity and your value, and like nothing has to be forever.
Yeah.
There are creative ways to plan your exit, so to
Mhm.
speak. It might
Mhm.
take you a little bit longer,
Mhm.
but when we give our agency up is when like we lose all hope. And that's when the health really starts to tank on all fronts.
Right. Absolutely. It's so difficult because we want to be able to grow skills to handle this kind of adversity and to develop
Mhm.
the capacity to handle these types of
Mhm.
difficult situations. But, as you're saying, there is a line where it's like, okay, this is crossed into the territory of everything is tanking. The whole thing, like, I make half a
Yeah.
million dollars and I hate my life. That requires
Yeah.
examining.
Right.
It's that delicate balance of growing your skills and capacity and not just quitting at the drop of a hat. Because obviously, we must work. It's a fact
Yeah.
of life. We must work.
Yeah.
And work, even if you are passionate about what you do, even if you have feel great purpose in that, sometimes work is work and a job is a
Yeah.
job. And
Yep.
there's good days and bad days. And you have days of like, why am I doing this? And you have days where you're like, this is amazing.
Right.
Regardless of all of that, yeah, we want to grow, but take care of yourself. Be aware. And
Yes.
like Lacey said, don't get to that point where you have lost your agency, given it up. Hope is a very powerful thing. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And the formula for hope for people listening, social scientists have studied this, what creates hope. And it is the vision, a clear vision of where I want to be, where I want to go, the pathway to get there, and then understanding your specific actions that you can take that are going to move you along the pathway. That when you can have all those three pieces, you're going to be just a lot more healthy internally. And so a lot of times when something isn't clear, let's say you have a great boss, they're really nice, but you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. It's usually one of those three pieces isn't locked in the context of your job. You can't see it. And so that's where you can, if you have a boss that isn't just a tyrant, that's where you can have the conversation of, hey, okay, so I can see this is where we're going, but I need more clarity around like what does my day-to-day need to look like to move us to where we're going? And can you help me prioritize in what are the most important things to focus on when I know I can't do it all in my 8-hour shift? How do I prioritize what comes first? A healthy boss will be open to that conversation and actually probably impressed you asked that question.
Yes, agreed. Well, Lacey, I know that there is no shortage of stories that we could share from being on the employee side of things,
Yes.
and truly a universal experience. Thank you for sharing those tips. This is the
Right.
groundwork of how do I deal with this difficult boss. So this is definitely something I'd love to revisit. We can share more terrible boss stories, which
Oh my
is
gosh.
there's yeah,
Days.
there's a
As
lot
Anne
there.
Lamott says, if people didn't want to be talked about, they shouldn't have treated you that way. So
It's true. And, I feel like I've gotten a lot bolder with that as I've gotten older, so I
yes.
think that's a good thing.
God, a whole
So,
episode on why do we feel we need to protect terrible people. Maybe we should unpack that. I don't
now
know.
that's an
Sorry.
episode. Seriously, I'm writing this down. I'm gonna write this down, but there you have it. But, take heart, viewers, listeners, we all experience it, and there's always a way through.
Absolutely.
Well, Lacey, thanks again for your time, and listeners and viewers, thank you for being here. Until next time, go manage like a leader. Thanks for listening to Confessions of a Terrible Leader. If you're feeling brave and have your own terrible leader story that you'd like to share, head over to transcendleadershipcollective.com/podcast to fill out a guest application. We'd love to hear from you. Confessions of a Terrible Leader is hosted by Layci Nelson and produced and edited by Fixation Point Productions. Music is by Leif Olson and Mary Scott from the band The Number of Months. Confessions of a Terrible Leader is a free leadership resource offered by Transcend Leadership Collective. If you are ready to refuse the limits of average leadership and join the leadership revolution, visit transcendleadershipcollective.com to check out our offerings for engaging workshops, strategic planning, and more. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a review. And until next time, go manage like a leader.